It was 6:47 in the morning on February 23, 2006. Customs and Border Protection agents were at Honolulu International Airport. They watched Alexander Yuk Ching Ma as he walked through the arrivals terminal. He had just returned from Shanghai. The Customs and Border Protection officers flagged him for secondary screening. This was standard procedure, a random check. Ma approached the inspection table. He appeared calm and collected. There were no visible signs of nervousness. The agent asked the routine questions. The agent asked where he had been and how long he was there. They also asked the purpose of his trip. Ma provided his answers. He said he was there for tourism and visiting relatives. These were normal explanations. Then the physical inspection began. The agent opened Ma's luggage. Inside were clothing and toiletries. Nothing seemed unusual, but something caught the officer's attention. It was a brand new set of golf clubs. They were expensive and of premium quality. The tags were still attached to them. Ma explained he bought them as a gift. The agent nodded. He continued the search. Then came the critical question. The agent asked how much currency Ma was carrying. Ma hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Then he responded. The agent asked him to place the cash on the inspection table. Ma reached into his jacket. He pulled out bundled United States currency. It totaled $20,000, all in $100 bills. The agent counted the money twice. He then recorded the amount. The agent recorded $20,000 in cash. There was also a new set of golf clubs easily worth $1,500. These amounts were significant. Alexander Ma worked as a contract linguist for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. His annual salary barely exceeded $60,000. These numbers simply did not add up. The agent completed the inspection. Ma collected his belongings and walked toward the exit. He did not know that every detail of this inspection had been logged. He also did not know that the Federal Bureau of Investigation had been watching him for months. This moment with the golf clubs would become evidence. It would be part of one of the most brazen espionage cases in modern American counterintelligence history. The man carrying $20,000 through Honolulu Airport that February morning had already betrayed the United States for 5 years. However, his story of treachery began much earlier than that. Alexander Yuk Ching Ma was born in 1952 in British Hong Kong. This occurred during the height of Cold War tensions between the West and Communist China. His early life unfolded against the backdrop of a divided Asia. Hong Kong remained a British Crown colony. Meanwhile, mainland China underwent revolutionary transformation under Mao Zedong. Ma grew up in a unique environment where East met West. British colonial administration coexisted with Chinese culture there. Opportunity beckoned for those willing to navigate between two worlds. In 1968, when Ma was 16 years old, his family made a decision. This decision would shape his destiny. They immigrated to the United States. They did not move to the major Chinese communities of San Francisco or New York. Instead, they chose Honolulu, Hawaii. Honolulu was known as the crossroads of the Pacific. Ma enrolled in Honolulu schools to complete his primary education. He adapted quickly and learned English. He absorbed American culture while maintaining his Chinese language skills. He also kept his cultural connections. After graduating high school, Ma enrolled at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. This was the flagship campus of the university system. He pursued his studies while living in one of America's most diverse communities. Honolulu's population included substantial numbers of Asian Americans. Among them were Japanese, Chinese, and Filipino people. Many Koreans also lived there. Ma blended into this multicultural environment. He was ambitious, intelligent, and multilingual. This made him exactly the type of candidate. He would attract attention from a certain government agency that recruited heavily from universities. In 1982, Alexander Ma achieved what many considered the pinnacle of intelligence work. He was accepted into the Central Intelligence Agency. The agency put him through its rigorous training program. Ma attended the legendary facility known as the Farm in Camp Peary, Virginia. There he received instruction in various aspects of tradecraft. This included surveillance detection, covert communications, and dead drops. He also learned brush passes and counter-surveillance techniques. This was the entire arsenal of clandestine operations. Upon completing his training, the Central Intelligence Agency granted Ma a top-secret security clearance. This clearance included access to sensitive compartmented information. This designation was known as Top Secret Sensitive Compartmented Information. This clearance opened doors to some of America's most closely guarded secrets. It granted him access to the identities of covert Central Intelligence Agency officers. These officers operated around the world. It also gave him access to the identities of human sources. These sources risked their lives providing intelligence to the United States. He also learned details of sensitive intelligence collection operations and their methods. This included cryptographic information related to agency secure communications. Finally, he accessed the internal structure and organization of the agency itself. This was everything a hostile foreign intelligence service would pay dearly to obtain. In 1983, the Central Intelligence Agency assigned Ma overseas. His personnel file did not specify the exact location. However, court documents later revealed he worked in the East Asia and Pacific region. This was a perfect assignment for someone fluent in Mandarin Chinese. He was also familiar with Asian culture. For 6 years, Alexander Ma served as a Central Intelligence Agency operations officer. He recruited sources and handled agents. He also filed intelligence reports. He had access to everything within the agency. Then in 1989, Ma resigned from the Central Intelligence Agency. The official reason remains unclear from public records. Perhaps he wanted a career change. Perhaps he grew tired of the pressure. It is also possible he had other plans. He left the agency and disappeared from government service. The next decade of Alexander Ma's life remains partially obscured. Court documents revealed he spent significant time living in mainland China. Customs and Border Protection agents interviewed him upon his return to Honolulu on November 24, 2000. Ma told them he had been residing in China for at least the previous 5 years. He described himself as an importer and exporter, a businessman. The Customs and Border Protection agents searched him during that entry interview. They found $9,000 in United States currency in his possession. This was a substantial amount of cash. However, it was not enough to trigger a full investigation. Ma returned to his residence in Honolulu. He was 58 years old. He had been out of Central Intelligence Agency service for over a decade. His top-secret clearance had long since expired. He appeared to be just another middle-aged businessman. He was trying to make a living trading between China and Hawaii. But Alexander Ma was not finished with the intelligence world, and the intelligence world was not finished with him. What happened next would demonstrate either breathtaking arrogance or desperate calculation. In March 2003, while living in Hawaii, Ma submitted an electronic job application. He did not apply to a private company. He did not apply to a business. Alexander Ma applied to work for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The sequence of Ma's job applications revealed either remarkable boldness or a carefully planned strategy. This strategy was directed by his handlers. On December 26, 2002, Ma submitted his first application to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He applied for the position of special agent. The Bureau's response came quickly. On December 30, 2002, the Bureau informed Ma. He did not meet the age requirements for special agent positions. Most agencies impose maximum age limits for agent positions. This is due to the physical demands and the need for decades of service. Ma had already passed that threshold, but he did not give up. On the same day he received the rejection, December 30th, Ma submitted another electronic application. This time he applied for a contract linguist monitor tester position. A few months later, on April 14, 2003, Ma submitted a formal written application. This was for a contract linguist position specializing in Chinese languages. The position was at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Honolulu Field Office. The position involved translating intercepted communications, documents, and other materials. These were translated from Chinese into English. It offered access to classified investigations. It also provided access to Federal Bureau of Investigation files. This included access to the inner workings of America's premier domestic counterintelligence organization. For a foreign intelligence service seeking to penetrate United States law enforcement, an asset inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation would be invaluable. Just 1 week after submitting his Federal Bureau of Investigation application on April 21, 2003, Alexander Ma made a phone call. He used a prepaid calling card which he purchased with cash. This made it harder to trace than a regular phone line. The Bureau later determined the call went to Ma's Chinese intelligence handlers. Ma was notifying the Ministry of State Security about his application status. He was telling them his efforts to gain Federal Bureau of Investigation employment were progressing. On May 20th, 2004, the Federal Bureau of Investigation notified Alexander Ma his background investigation for the contract linguist position had been completed. His employment contract would be ready for review within several weeks. Ma agreed to continue the hiring process. The Bureau seemed to have no concerns. They brought aboard a former Central Intelligence Agency officer who had spent years living in China. On August 10, 2004, Ma made another phone call to a suspected accomplice. This was one day before his scheduled start date with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. During the conversation, Ma stated that he would be working for the other side. The comment was cryptic. However, its meaning would soon become clear. On August 11, 2004, Alexander Yuk Ching Ma reported to work. This was at a separate location for the Federal Bureau of Investigation Honolulu field office. He signed all the required secrecy agreements. With his signature, he acknowledged his understanding of the secrecy requirements. The secrecy agreement explicitly stated its terms. Ma agreed he would never divulge, publish, or reveal any information. This included details from the investigatory files of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He also promised not to disclose any material acquired as part of his contract. This was without official written authorization from the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation or his delegate. Ma signed the agreement. That same day, the Bureau conducted a security briefing. They explained to Ma that he would be working in a controlled security environment. This environment was designed for the storage of classified materials. Therefore, he could not use any personal devices. This meant no laptop computers or cellular telephones. It also prohibited personal digital assistants and digital cameras. No removable media was allowed. He could not use anything that could copy or remove information. The Bureau explicitly instructed Ma. He was never to remove any document or digital material from the secure Federal Bureau of Investigation workspace. Ma acknowledged these instructions. He understood them perfectly. He had received identical briefings during his Central Intelligence Agency career. And then Ma went to work. What the Federal Bureau of Investigation did not know was that their new contract linguist had already spent 3 days in a Hong Kong hotel room. There, he was selling America's secrets to Chinese intelligence officers. The hotel meeting that doomed Alexander Ma took place more than 3 years before the Federal Bureau of Investigation hired him. It began on March 24, 2001. Ma was living in mainland China at the time. Chinese intelligence officers from the Shanghai State Security Bureau, a provincial branch of the Ministry of State Security, contacted Ma. They had a proposition. They wanted to meet with his older brother, someone Ma knew very well. The man was identified in court documents only as co-conspirator number 1. Ma's brother was also a former Central Intelligence Agency officer. Born in Shanghai in the 1930s, he had come to the United States in 1961. He joined the Central Intelligence Agency in 1967 and worked as an operations officer from 1971 to 1982. Like his younger brother, co-conspirator number 1 held a top-secret security clearance with special compartmented information access during his Central Intelligence Agency career. He had been assigned overseas for multiple years. He had access to covert officer identities. He also knew human source identities and collection methods. These were all crown jewels of American intelligence operations. Co-conspirator number 1 had resigned from the Central Intelligence Agency in 1983. The agency determined he was inappropriately using his official position. He was assisting People's Republic of China nationals in obtaining entry into the United States. Even then, warning signs existed regarding his loyalty. By 2001, co-conspirator number 1 lived in Los Angeles, California. He was in his 70s and years removed from intelligence work. However, he still possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of Central Intelligence Agency operations from his 15 years of service. The Chinese intelligence officers knew this and wanted that knowledge. They asked Alexander Ma to arrange a meeting, and Ma agreed. He convinced his brother to participate. The reasons why co-conspirator number 1 agreed remain unclear. Perhaps Ma told him it was safe to cooperate. Perhaps Ma offered to split whatever payment they received. Perhaps co-conspirator number one felt abandoned by the agency that had forced his resignation decades earlier. Whatever the motivation, both brothers agreed to meet with Chinese intelligence. The meetings took place over 3 days in a Hong Kong hotel room. These meetings occurred from March 24th through March 26, 2001. At least 5 officers from the Shanghai State Security Bureau attended these sessions. What happened during those 72 hours constituted one of the most comprehensive betrayals of American intelligence secrets in modern history. The Chinese intelligence officers brought audio recording equipment and video cameras because they wanted everything documented. The interrogation began with many questions. They asked how the Central Intelligence Agency operated. They also inquired about the tradecraft officers used. Other questions covered how covert communications were established. They also asked about the agency's internal structure and station locations. The brothers answered all these questions. They answered question after question, hour after hour, and day after day. They described Central Intelligence Agency international operations in detail. They explained the cover used by Central Intelligence Agency officers and the nature of Central Intelligence Agency activities abroad. They revealed cryptographic information used in classified and sensitive Central Intelligence Agency communications and reports. They disclosed the internal structure and organization of the Central Intelligence Agency. They identified Central Intelligence Agency officers by name. They described Central Intelligence Agency human assets, people who had risked everything to provide intelligence to the United States. Some of those people might still be alive and still vulnerable. The brothers told the Chinese intelligence officers how the Central Intelligence Agency used operational tradecraft to conduct surveillance and counter-surveillance. They explained Central Intelligence Agency technical departments and their capabilities. They described Central Intelligence Agency secure communication practices in detail. They revealed Central Intelligence Agency staffing practices and recruitment methods, effectively everything they knew. The Shanghai State Security Bureau officers took notes, recorded every word, and captured it all on video. At the end of the 3rd day, March 26, 2001, they paid for the information. The video recording of that final payment captured the moment with crystal clarity. The camera shows a hotel room where Alexander Ma and his brother co-conspirator number one sit across from Chinese intelligence officers. The atmosphere is relaxed, almost cordial, as everyone understands the transaction has been completed successfully. One of the Chinese officers places a bag on the table containing $50,000 in United States currency. It contained mostly $100 bills. Ma reaches for the money and begins to count it. The camera captures Ma's hands moving through the stacks. He was flipping bills, verifying the amount, and making sure every dollar was present. While Ma counts the cash, his brother continues talking to the Chinese officers. He provided additional classified information even as the payment was being made. The video shows Ma finishing his count, now satisfied with the amount. The money disappears into his possession. The total payment was $50,000, amounting to $25,000 for each brother. They split the payment evenly for selling out their country. After this, the meeting concluded, and the brothers left the hotel. They believed they had made a clean transaction. However, they did not know that this video recording would eventually become evidence in a federal espionage case. They also did not know the Federal Bureau of Investigation already suspected something. Furthermore, they certainly did not know that the Shanghai State Security Bureau was about to task them with additional assignments. This $50,000 was just the beginning. Following the March 2001 Hong Kong meetings, Alexander Ma maintained regular contact with his handlers at the Shanghai State Security Bureau. The relationship had been established and the payments had been made. Now the Chinese intelligence services wanted more. They wanted Ma to gain access to current United States government information. They sought not just historical knowledge from his Central Intelligence Agency days. They specifically desired current, actionable intelligence. That is why Ma applied to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Court documents and surveillance logs reveal the careful planning behind Ma's espionage activities. On February 15, 2006, Ma exchanged several email messages and phone calls with his Ministry of State Security intelligence officers. This occurred approximately 18 months after Ma began working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They discussed Ma's upcoming travel plans to Shanghai in late February. The Chinese officers told Ma they would book his hotel and pick him up from the airport. Everything would be arranged for his convenience. On February 17, 2006, Ma departed Honolulu for Shanghai via Narita International Airport in Tokyo. He carried with him documents he had taken from the Federal Bureau of Investigation's secure workspace. Some of these documents bore classification markings. Others contained sensitive information from ongoing Federal Bureau of Investigation investigations. The Federal Bureau of Investigation surveillance later revealed that Ma had been systematically stealing documents for months. On July 27, 2005, Ma brought a digital camera into the secure Federal Bureau of Investigation workspace. This was in direct violation of Federal Bureau of Investigation policy and the security protocols he had acknowledged. He photographed translation documents. The camera was small and easy to conceal. The documents were spread on his desk, and Ma aimed, clicked, and captured the pages. He repeated this process on August 18th, August 22nd, and August 26th. He continued on September 6th, September 12th, September 16th, and October 3rd. Each time, Ma brought his personal digital camera into a space where such devices were explicitly forbidden. Each time, he photographed documents containing sensitive Federal Bureau of Investigation information. On September 8, 2004, just weeks after starting his Federal Bureau of Investigation position, Ma used his assigned Federal Bureau of Investigation computer. He burned digital photographic images onto a CD-ROM disk. The images showed documents related to guided missile and weapon system technology research. This was classified defense information that had nothing to do with his linguist duties. Ma copied it anyway, took the disk home, and eventually delivered it to his Chinese handlers. The February 2006 trip to Shanghai lasted 6 days. During this time, Ma met with his handlers, delivered the stolen documents, and received his payment and gifts. On February 23, 2006, Ma returned to Honolulu International Airport. That is when Customs and Border Protection flagged him for secondary screening. The inspection found $20,000 in cash and a new set of golf clubs. The Customs and Border Protection agents documented everything and wrote a detailed report. This information went into government databases. However, at that point, no one connected the dots. Ma worked as a Federal Bureau of Investigation contractor and was presumably trusted. Surely if there were problems with his loyalty, someone would have flagged it before then. The Customs and Border Protection agents filed their report, and Ma went home. The very next day, February 24, 2006, Ma took action. This demonstrated either incredible arrogance or complete confidence that he would not be caught. Using his personal email account, Ma forwarded 2 email messages to his Chinese handlers. The first email contained information regarding classified Central Intelligence Agency activities. The second email was a message Ma had received from a Taiwanese diplomatic official. Ma simply forwarded both to Chinese intelligence. There was no encryption and no tradecraft, just direct communication from his personal account to theirs. 3 days later, on February 27, 2006, Ma sent another email. This one went to his brother co-conspirator number 1 in Los Angeles. Ma wrote that he was going to forward photographs of suspected human sources. The Shanghai State Security Bureau wanted co-conspirator number 1 to identify these individuals. The Chinese intelligence services were conducting their own counterintelligence operation. They suspected certain individuals of being Central Intelligence Agency sources and wanted confirmation. They turned to the Ma brothers for answers. On March 2, 2006, Ma telephoned his brother at the request of the Shanghai State Security Bureau officers. The phone call lasted several minutes. Ma asked co-conspirator number 1 about the identities of persons shown in photographs that Ma had received from Chinese intelligence. The photographs showed 5 individuals whom the Chinese suspected might be Central Intelligence Agency human sources. These were people providing intelligence to the United States. If their identities could be confirmed, those sources were in mortal danger. Co-conspirator number 1 agreed to help. He would examine the photographs and do his best to identify the individuals. 4 days later, on March 6, 2006, Ma received an unusual email from his Chinese handlers. The message contained a single photograph as an attachment. The image showed 5 puppies sitting on a park bench. There was nothing else in the image, just 5 puppies. The Federal Bureau of Investigation assessed that this photograph served as a prompt, a reminder. 5 puppies symbolized the 5 individuals to identify. The Chinese intelligence officers were clearly waiting for information. On March 16, 2006, Federal Bureau of Investigation surveillance revealed that Ma possessed a digital memory card at his residence. This card contained crucial evidence. The card held photographs of the 5 individuals, the suspected human sources the Chinese wanted identified. It also contained one picture of a piece of paper with names written in Chinese characters. The names were labeled with letters from A through E, 5 names for 5 people. Finally, the card held 8 photographs of a document that had been removed from the secure Federal Bureau of Investigation workspace. All the evidence was together in one location. On March 28, 2006, co-conspirator number 1 sent an email message to his younger brother. In this message, co-conspirator number 1 identified 2 of the 5 individuals depicted in the photographs provided by Chinese intelligence. This meant 2 human sources were potentially compromised, 2 people whose assistance to the United States may have just become known to the Chinese government. The full consequences of that identification would remain classified. However, in the intelligence world, when a source is compromised, the results are often fatal. The pattern of betrayal continued. Ma made frequent trips to China throughout his employment with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. On May 31, 2006, Ma arranged for his wife to fly to Shanghai. The Federal Bureau of Investigation later assessed that one purpose of this trip was for Ma's wife to meet with his Chinese intelligence contacts. Surveillance and intelligence gathering revealed that Ma's wife likely delivered a laptop computer to the Shanghai State Security Bureau during this trip. On June 10, 2006, one of Ma's handlers sent him an email message. The message thanked Ma for sending his wife. It also thanked him for delivering a specific item. The Federal Bureau of Investigation believed the laptop likely contained additional documents Ma had stolen from their files. On June 16, 2006, Ma departed Honolulu again for Hong Kong. He planned to meet with his handlers. He returned to Honolulu on July 15, 2006. During customs inspection, he declared $7,000 in United States currency. This was another substantial cash payment for another round of betrayal. The document theft accelerated in 2007 and 2008. On May 2, 2007, Ma photocopied and removed copies of translation documents. He took them from the secure Federal Bureau of Investigation workspace. Photocopying was easier than photographing. It also appeared less suspicious if someone walked in. Ma simply used the office photocopier. He made duplicates and took them home. On October 24, 2007, he repeated this act. More documents were photocopied and removed. On March 27, 2008, another round of document theft occurred. May 8, 2008, saw Ma photocopy and remove additional materials. Each theft represented another violation. It was another breach of trust and another crime. The phone calls between Ma and his handlers revealed the professional nature of the espionage relationship. On June 2, 2008, one of Ma's Shanghai State Security Bureau handlers telephoned him. During their conversation, the handler mentioned that his organization would have many intelligence requirements that year. In the world of espionage, officers and agents rarely speak directly about their activities. They use phone lines that might be monitored. Instead, they employ cover terminology and business language. The handler's reference to intelligence requirements meant tasks for Ma to complete. It meant information for him to steal. On August 15, 2008, another handler called Ma. The conversation was brief. The handler reminded Ma to call him if a particularly valuable opportunity arose. This meant that if Ma gained access to particularly valuable information, he should alert his handlers immediately. He should not wait for the next scheduled meeting. He needed to get the information to them right away. Ma acknowledged and understood. The espionage continued through 2009 and 2010. On February 3, 2009, Ma photographed and removed documents with classification markings. He took them from the secure Federal Bureau of Investigation workspace. He also removed copies of translation documents on the same day. This represented multiple thefts in a single day. On April 21, 2009, Ma photocopied and removed documents bearing classification markings. His methods varied. Sometimes he used photographs and sometimes photocopies. He chose whatever worked best for the particular documents. On December 2, 2009, during a telephone conversation, co-conspirator number 1 told Ma about a recent trip to China. Co-conspirator number 1 had met with a Ministry of State Security contact in Yunnan province. Even in his late 70s, co-conspirator number 1 was still meeting with Chinese intelligence officers. He was possibly showing early signs of the Alzheimer's disease that would later ravage his mind. He remained part of the network. He was still betraying his country decades after his Central Intelligence Agency service ended. January 14, 2010 marked another escalation in Ma's boldness. On that date, Ma photographed documents in the secure Federal Bureau of Investigation workspace. He used his cellular phone for this purpose. By 2010, cell phone cameras had become ubiquitous. They offered high quality and were easy to use. Ma simply aimed his phone at documents on his desk and captured images. This method was quick, quiet, and difficult to detect. On March 6, 2010, one of Ma's handlers telephoned him. They discussed a meeting in Hong Kong in late March. Approximately 1 hour after this call, the same handler called again. They confirmed Ma's travel schedule. The handler advised Ma that his superiors were eager to meet him. Senior Chinese intelligence officials wanted to see their productive asset. They wanted to personally receive the latest intelligence haul. On March 17, 2010, Ma boarded a flight from Honolulu to Seoul, South Korea. As he boarded the aircraft, he had a document with secret classification markings. Ma had taken this document from the secure Federal Bureau of Investigation workspace. He also possessed a Chinese language document that he had improperly removed. Ma carried classified United States government documents across international borders. He went through airport security and onto a commercial aircraft. The risk of detection was substantial. However, Ma had grown confident. He had been doing this for 6 years. Nothing bad had happened, and he saw no reason why it would start then. On March 31, 2010, after returning from his trip, Ma sent one of his handlers an email message. Ma requested payment for his business expenses. He provided a bank account number at a Hong Kong bank for payment purposes. Even the payment process used business terminology. It sounded professional and mundane, but it was actually payment for espionage. The money arrived, and the relationship continued. On May 17, 2010, Ma received a phone call from a Ministry of State Security officer. This officer apologized for not seeing Ma during his recent travel to China. Scheduling conflicts happen even in espionage. The officer extended an invitation to meet in Shanghai in the future. However, the conversation soon revealed something more important. The officer told Ma he should communicate with co-conspirator number 1 more often. Ma needed to determine if co-conspirator number 1 would be willing to discuss their intelligence venture. The Chinese intelligence services wanted to keep co-conspirator number 1 engaged. His institutional knowledge from his Central Intelligence Agency years remained valuable. On May 19, 2010, Ma sent an email to one of his handlers. The message was direct. Ma stated he needed money when he was next in Hong Kong. The frequency of Ma's trips and the payments he received demonstrated this had become a profitable criminal enterprise. On August 28, 2010, Ma received another phone call from a Ministry of State Security officer. The officer inquired about the progress of intelligence gathering. He asked if Ma was obtaining good information. Then he invited Ma to visit Shanghai, preferably in March 2011. The relationship was ongoing and the espionage had no end date. The final documented acts of document theft occurred in November 2010. On November 2nd, Ma inserted a digital storage device into his Federal Bureau of Investigation computer. This occurred at the secure workspace. This represented another violation of security protocols, as personal digital devices were forbidden. On November 23rd, Ma again inserted a digital storage device into his Federal Bureau of Investigation computer. Then on November 30th, he did it one more time. What information Ma copied onto those storage devices remains classified. However, based on the pattern of his previous activities, the data likely included classified documents. It also included Federal Bureau of Investigation investigative files and sensitive information about intelligence operations and sources. What Alexander Ma did not know was that the Federal Bureau of Investigation had been watching him for years. The Bureau had suspected him long before they hired him. The decision to bring Ma aboard as a contract linguist in August 2004 was not a bureaucratic oversight. It was a calculated counterintelligence operation. The Federal Bureau of Investigation wanted to know what Ma was doing. They wanted to know who he was working for. They also wanted to know what information he sought to steal. The Federal Bureau of Investigation also wanted to know how Ma communicated with his handlers. By hiring Ma and carefully controlling his access, the Federal Bureau of Investigation could monitor his activities. They could watch his travels and document his thefts. This allowed them to build an airtight case. The strategy required patience. It required allowing Ma to continue his espionage under controlled conditions. Ultimately, it worked. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's Honolulu field office coordinated with the Los Angeles field office and Federal Bureau of Investigation headquarters in Washington. Multiple agents tracked Ma's movements. They analyzed his email communications and recorded his phone calls. They documented every trip to China. Agents also noted every return with cash and gifts. The surveillance logs grew and the evidence mounted. By 2019, the Federal Bureau of Investigation was ready for the final phase. The operation required an undercover employee. This person needed to convincingly pose as a Chinese intelligence officer. They also needed to gain Ma's trust and elicit a confession. In January 2019, the Federal Bureau of Investigation undercover employee made contact. The undercover employee arranged a meeting with Ma at his business office in Honolulu. Ma operated a small business in the years after the Federal Bureau of Investigation discontinued his contract in October 2012. The undercover employee arrived. He introduced himself as a representative of the Shanghai State Security Bureau. He stated he was conducting an internal investigation on behalf of the People's Republic of China government. This investigation was to determine how Ma had been treated. It also sought to discover how much he had been compensated. Furthermore, it aimed to assess whether certain Ministry of State security officers had handled his case appropriately. To establish credibility, the undercover employee brought something powerful. This was a copy of the video recording from March 26, 2001. The video showed Ma and his brother in the Hong Kong hotel room receiving $50,000 for betraying their country. The undercover employee played the video for Ma. Ma watched himself on screen. He watched himself counting cash while his brother disclosed classified Central Intelligence Agency information. 18 years had passed since that Hong Kong hotel meeting. However, the video brought all the memories back. Ma's reaction told the undercover employee everything he needed to know. Ma appeared convinced that the undercover employee truly was a representative of Chinese intelligence. After all, this person would otherwise not possess that video. The recording had been made by the Shanghai State Security Bureau. It should not exist outside Chinese intelligence channels. Ma's guard came down. He began to talk. Ma told the undercover employee that he had provided classified information to Chinese intelligence. He confirmed he had continued to work with some of the Ministry of State security officials present in the video recording of the March 2001 meeting. Then Ma did something that sealed his fate. He helped the undercover employee identify some of the Chinese intelligence officers present during the meeting. Ma pointed them out on the video. He provided names and details, which confirmed everything. During that January 2019 meeting, Ma verified the authenticity of the video recording. He confirmed it accurately depicted the persons present. This included himself, his brother, and several Shanghai State Security Bureau officers. The conversation lasted over an hour. Ma seemed almost relieved to talk about his espionage career. He spoke with someone who understood, someone from the other side. On March 13, 2019, the undercover employee called Ma again. He asked if Ma would meet a second time. Ma agreed immediately. They met again. This time the undercover employee brought something tangible. It was $2,000 in cash, in United States currency. The undercover employee handed the money to Ma. He explained it was to acknowledge Ma's work on behalf of China. Ma accepted the money without hesitation. He counted it and verified the amount. It was $2,000. He counted it the same way he had counted $50,000 in that Hong Kong hotel room 18 years earlier. Some habits never change. Ma told the undercover employee he was willing to continue helping Chinese intelligence. He confirmed that during his time working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, he had provided multiple items of valuable United States government information to the Shanghai State Security Bureau. The admissions continued, with each statement providing further evidence for the case. Each confirmation also represented an additional charge for the prosecutors. The Federal Bureau of Investigation allowed months to pass. They wanted Ma to believe he was safe and that his new contact was legitimate. On August 12, 2020, the undercover employee arranged a third meeting. Once again, the undercover employee brought cash. The envelope contained $2,000. This was a traditional Chinese method for giving money. The undercover employee handed the envelope to Ma. He told Ma the money came from his employer in appreciation of Ma's efforts to assist them. Ma accepted the envelope. He opened it and counted the cash. Ma then placed the money in his pants pocket. Ma then made statements that would be quoted in court documents. He told the undercover employee that he wanted the motherland to succeed. Ma was referring to the People's Republic of China. His loyalty was explicit. The undercover employee asked Ma about his past work with Chinese intelligence. Ma provided comprehensive answers. He said he had already given the Shanghai State Security Bureau all of the information he possessed. Nothing remained from his Federal Bureau of Investigation access. Ma revealed that much of the information he provided was contained on a laptop computer. This laptop had been given to him by his Ministry of State security handler. He later returned that laptop to Chinese intelligence. Ma explained that the Shanghai State Security Bureau first approached him when he was living in China in the late 1990s. The Ministry of State security officer who contacted him was direct and open about his affiliation with the Chinese government. There was no pretense or false flag operation. It was just a straightforward recruitment pitch. Ma said the Ministry of State Security approached him to gain access to his brother, co-conspirator number 1. The Chinese government viewed co-conspirator number 1's past membership in an anti-communist organization as a threat. They wanted to neutralize that threat by compromising him. This meant turning him into an asset. During that August 12, 2020 meeting, Ma also discussed the future. He told the undercover employee that he was willing to continue helping the Chinese government. Perhaps he could serve as a consultant. However, he wanted to wait until after the COVID-19 pandemic subsided before discussing specific opportunities. Ma was planning for the long term. He looked forward to more years of betraying the country that had granted him citizenship. This nation had provided him with education and given him a career in intelligence. He had no intention of stopping. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had gathered all necessary evidence. This included recorded confessions and video evidence showing Ma accepting cash from someone he believed was a Chinese intelligence officer. They also had detailed admissions about decades of espionage. Furthermore, there was confirmation of the Hong Kong hotel meetings. Additionally, the stolen Federal Bureau of Investigation documents, the laptop computer full of classified information, and the compromised human sources were all collected. All these elements were necessary for a successful prosecution. 2 days later, on August 14, 2020, Federal Bureau of Investigation agents executed an arrest warrant. The location was Ma's residence in Honolulu. Multiple vehicles and dozens of agents were involved. They had planned for every contingency. Ma was now 67 years old, nearly 70 years of age. However, he could still potentially resist or attempt to flee. The agents approached the residence in the early morning hours. They knocked on the door and identified themselves as agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Alexander Yuk Ching Ma opened the door. He saw the agents, their badges, their weapons, and the vehicles surrounding his home. His face showed recognition. He knew why they were there. The arresting agent informed Ma he was under arrest for conspiracy to communicate national defense information to aid a foreign government. This was espionage. Ma said nothing in response. The agents handcuffed him. They read him his Miranda rights and placed him in a vehicle. His freedom ended at that moment. After decades of betrayal, the consequences had finally arrived. The federal criminal complaint was filed on August 13, 2020. It was submitted in the United States District Court for the District of Hawaii. The document outlined the charges against Alexander Yuk Ching Ma. Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Chris Jensen prepared the document. He was a counterintelligence specialist who had led the investigation. The affidavit ran 26 pages and detailed the extensive evidence against Ma. The charges included conspiracy to violate Title 18, United States Code, Section 794. This was a conspiracy to gather and communicate national defense information to a foreign government. The statute provided for punishment by death or imprisonment for life. Federal prosecutors initially charged only Ma. They did not arrest his brother. The affidavit explained that co-conspirator number 1 currently suffered from an advanced and debilitating cognitive disease. Solely due to co-conspirator number 1's present cognitive issues, prosecutors did not seek an arrest warrant for him at that time. Court documents later revealed that co-conspirator number 1 had developed Alzheimer's disease approximately 10 years earlier. By 2020, his condition had progressed to a state of complete disability. He could not stand trial, understand the charges, or assist in his own defense. His mind had been destroyed by the same disease that consumed his memory. The irony was terrible. A man who sold intelligence secrets to a foreign power eventually lost his own memories. He lost the knowledge of what he had done. Co-conspirator number 1 died while the case against his brother proceeded through the courts. Ma's initial court appearance took place on August 17, 2020. Federal prosecutors from the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Hawaii and the Department of Justice National Security Division presented the case. It was presented to Magistrate Judge Derek K. Watson. Ma appeared in custody. He was held without bail. The government argued he posed an extreme flight risk. This was due to his connections to Chinese intelligence and his demonstrated willingness to betray the United States for money. Ma's defense attorney, Bernie Bervar, argued for bail. He presented Ma's ties to the community. He also noted Ma's age and health concerns. The magistrate judge denied bail. Alexander Ma would remain in custody pending trial. The case moved slowly through the legal system. The COVID-19 pandemic caused delays. Court operations were disrupted. Pre-trial motions and hearings proceeded in fits and starts. Ma's attorney filed motions to suppress evidence. He also filed motions challenging the government's case. These were standard defense tactics in a federal espionage prosecution. However, the evidence was overwhelming. This included video from the Hong Kong hotel. There were also recorded meetings with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Undercover employee. Surveillance logs documented Ma's trips to China. Customs records showed cash and gifts. A forensic examination of Ma's Federal Bureau of Investigation computer revealed unauthorized copying of classified materials. Email communications with Chinese intelligence officers were also found. Furthermore, Federal Bureau of Investigation agents who had monitored Ma for years provided testimony. Everything pointed to his guilt. By early 2024, reality set in for Alexander Ma and his defense team. The evidence was insurmountable. A trial would result in conviction. The maximum sentence was life in prison. Ma was 71 years old. Life in prison meant dying in federal custody. The Department of Justice offered a plea agreement. Ma would plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to gather and deliver national defense information to the People's Republic of China. In exchange, prosecutors would recommend a 10-year sentence. Ma would have to cooperate fully with the United States government for the rest of his life. He would submit to debriefings by United States government agencies. He would undergo polygraph examinations whenever requested. He would provide complete and truthful information about his espionage activities. This also included information about his Chinese handlers and the information he stole. He agreed to share anything else the intelligence community wanted to know. If Ma lied during any debriefing or polygraph, the plea agreement would be void. He would then face the full range of sentencing, up to life imprisonment. On May 24, 2024, Alexander Yuk Ching Ma appeared in United States District Court in Honolulu. He appeared before Chief Judge Derek K. Watson. The courtroom was filled. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, and Federal Bureau of Investigation agents were present. Intelligence community representatives and media members also attended. The moment had arrived. Judge Watson addressed Ma directly. He asked if Ma understood the charges. He also asked if Ma understood the plea agreement. Finally, he asked if Ma was pleading guilty voluntarily. Ma answered yes to each question. His voice was quiet but clear. Judge Watson asked Ma to describe in his own words what he had done. Ma admitted that in March 2001, he and his deceased relative, who was also a former Central Intelligence Agency officer, met with intelligence officers from the People's Republic of China's Shanghai State Security Bureau. This meeting occurred in a Hong Kong hotel room. During meetings that lasted 3 days, Ma and his relative provided the Chinese intelligence officers with a large volume of classified United States national defense information. They received $50,000 in cash in return. Ma admitted that after the March 2001 meetings, he maintained contact with Chinese intelligence officers. He agreed to continue providing assistance. Ma confirmed that in 2003 he applied for and obtained employment as a contract linguist with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Honolulu field office. He admitted that between August 2004 and October 2012, while working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, he stole classified documents and materials. These were taken from the Federal Bureau of Investigation's secure workspace. He photographed documents and photocopied documents. He also burned documents to compact disk read-only memories. Ma physically removed documents, all with the intent to provide them to Chinese intelligence. Ma admitted making frequent trips to China during his Federal Bureau of Investigation employment. He would deliver the stolen materials to his Shanghai State Security Bureau handlers. He would return to Hawaii with thousands of dollars in cash and expensive gifts, including golf clubs. Ma admitted that in February 2006, he asked his relative, co-conspirator number 1, to help identify suspected Central Intelligence Agency human sources. These were identified from photographs provided by Chinese intelligence. Co-conspirator number 1 identified 2 of the individuals. That identification information was classified United States National Defense information. Ma provided it to Chinese intelligence, knowing it could be used to harm the United States and advantage the People's Republic of China. Assistant United States Attorney Ken Sorensen stood to address the court. He detailed the harm caused by Ma's espionage. This included the betrayal of Central Intelligence Agency sources. It also involved the compromise of intelligence operations. Additionally, it led to years of Chinese intelligence services gaining insights into Federal Bureau of Investigation investigations and methods. Sorensen emphasized that Ma had taken an oath to protect United States classified secrets. He violated that oath systematically for decades in exchange for money. Judge Watson listened to the government's presentation. Then he turned to the defense. Bernie Bervar, Ma's attorney, spoke about his client's cooperation. This included his willingness to debrief with government agencies and his acceptance of responsibility. Bervar asked the court to accept the plea agreement and impose the recommended 10-year sentence. Judge Watson accepted Ma's guilty plea. The conviction was entered. Sentencing was scheduled for September 11, 2024. Ma returned to custody. He had 4 months to contemplate his future. He also had 4 months to prepare for the debriefings that would consume the rest of his life. It was September 11, 2024. The irony of the date was not lost on anyone in the courtroom. This date had reshaped American national security. It led to the creation of new intelligence agencies. It also caused a massive expansion of counterintelligence capabilities. Now, on the 23rd anniversary of those attacks, a man who betrayed those intelligence services would learn his fate. Chief Judge Derek K. Watson's courtroom in Honolulu filled early that day. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 9 o'clock in the morning. Federal prosecutors arrived. These included Claire E. Connors, the United States Attorney for the District of Hawaii. Assistant United States Attorneys Ken Sorensen and Craig Nolan had prosecuted the case. Trial attorneys Scott Claffey and Leslie Esbrook also attended. They were from the Department of Justice National Security Division's Counterintelligence and Export Control Section. Representatives from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, also known as the FBI, were present. They came from the Honolulu and Los Angeles field offices. Intelligence community officials had spent years investigating Ma's betrayals. Everyone wanted to see justice delivered. Alexander Ma was brought into the courtroom in custody. He wore civilian clothes. He was no longer the confident intelligence officer. He was no longer the trusted Federal Bureau of Investigation contractor. Instead, he was an elderly man facing the consequences of his choices. Judge Watson called the proceeding to order. He had reviewed the sentencing memorandums filed by both sides. He had also reviewed the plea agreement. The judge considered the nature of the crimes and the harm caused to national security. The government spoke first. Prosecutors detailed the decades-long conspiracy to commit espionage. They noted that Ma was convicted of a serious breach of national security. This breach caused the government to expend substantial investigative resources. Prosecutors emphasized Ma's role in the conspiracy. He facilitated the exchange of classified Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, information. His brother had obtained this information during his CIA service. This occurred from 1967 to 1983. However, Ma did not stop there. He actively sought FBI employment to gain access to additional classified information. He systematically stole documents and materials for 6 years while working as a trusted contractor. The prosecutors acknowledged that Ma had been cooperative since his arrest. He participated in multiple interview sessions with government agents. He answered their questions. Ma also provided information about his Chinese handlers and his methods of operation. This cooperation justified the 10-year sentence recommendation. It avoided pursuing the maximum penalty. Judge Watson asked Ma if he wished to make a statement. Ma stood and spoke briefly. He expressed remorse for his actions. He said he understood the harm he had caused. The statement lasted less than 2 minutes before Ma sat down. Judge Watson then delivered his ruling. He sentenced Alexander Yuk Ching Ma to 120 months in federal prison. This amounted to 10 years. The prison term would be followed by 5 years of supervised release. The sentence aligned with the plea agreement recommendation. However, Judge Watson added several conditions. During his supervised release after prison, Ma would be subject to polygraph examinations. The probation officer would determine these examinations. He would also be required to submit to debriefings by United States government intelligence agencies. This requirement would last for the rest of his life. Furthermore, he would face restrictions on his travel and contacts. These restrictions were designed to ensure he could never again engage in espionage activities. Ma showed no visible reaction. He had known this outcome was coming. He knew it since he signed the plea agreement in May. The 10-year sentence meant Ma would be 81 years old upon his release. This was only if he survived that long. Federal prison is generally not kind to elderly inmates. Medical care is minimal and conditions can be harsh. The stress of incarceration often takes a significant toll. Judge Watson ordered Ma remanded to the custody of the United States Bureau of Prisons. The judge recommended that Ma be initially designated to the Federal Detention Center in Honolulu. After this, he would be transferred to an appropriate federal correctional institution to serve his sentence. The hearing concluded shortly afterward. Marshals approached Ma and led him from the courtroom. He walked with his head down. He was no longer making eye contact with anyone. The man who had betrayed his country for golf clubs and cash was going to die in prison. The Ma case represents one of the most significant counterintelligence investigations of the 21st century. A damage assessment conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency and the Federal Bureau of Investigation revealed the scope of compromised operations. This included the identities of Central Intelligence Agency officers potentially exposed to Chinese intelligence. Human sources whose identities were confirmed by Ma's brother were also revealed. Some of those sources disappeared, and their fates remained classified. Intelligence operations had to be shut down because Chinese intelligence knew about them. Years of Federal Bureau of Investigation investigations were compromised. This occurred because Ma provided details to his handlers. Cryptographic information and secure communication methods required changes at enormous cost. Internal Central Intelligence Agency structure and organization details gave Chinese intelligence insights. This revealed how America conducts espionage. The full damage will never be publicly known. Much of it remains classified at the highest levels. However, intelligence professionals understand the magnitude of this betrayal. They know that the damage is catastrophic. This occurs when a former Central Intelligence Agency officer with top secret sensitive compartmented information access spends 3 days in a hotel room. In that room, he tells foreign intelligence officers everything he knows. When that same person then infiltrates the Federal Bureau of Investigation and steals classified documents for 6 years, the damage only compounds. The Ma case also highlighted vulnerabilities in the clearance process. It raised questions about how Ma managed to get hired by the Federal Bureau of Investigation after spending years living in China. Many wondered why that situation did not raise red flags. People also questioned why his application was not automatically rejected. The answer reveals both the Federal Bureau of Investigation's cleverness and the system's weaknesses. The Federal Bureau of Investigation suspected Ma from the beginning. They hired him specifically to watch him. The goal was to see what he would do and to build a case against him. This strategy worked effectively. However, it also meant allowing a compromised individual access to classified information for years. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's risk calculation was that the intelligence gained from monitoring Ma. This outweighed the damage he could do under controlled conditions. That calculation proved correct. Nevertheless, it set a precedent. The Federal Bureau of Investigation now had evidence that its contractor monitoring systems could identify and track espionage activity. They also learned critical information. This information included how Chinese intelligence officers recruit and handle assets. They learned about the communications methods and the payment mechanisms. The Federal Bureau of Investigation also understood the tasking procedures, all of which was valuable counterintelligence information. The MA case unfolded against the backdrop of intensifying United States and China intelligence competition. In the years leading up to Ma's arrest, several other major Chinese espionage cases had been prosecuted. For example, Kevin Mallory, a former Central Intelligence Agency officer, was arrested in 2017. He was later convicted of conspiring to transmit classified information to China. Jerry Chun-Shing Lee was another former Central Intelligence Agency officer. He was arrested in January 2018. Lee eventually pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit espionage. These cases revealed a clear pattern. Chinese intelligence services were systematically targeting former Central Intelligence Agency officers. These officers had access to information about intelligence operations in Asia. They recruited these officers years or even decades after they left government service. These agents paid them substantial sums. They then extracted everything these former officers knew. The Ma case fit this pattern perfectly. The golf clubs and cash that Ma brought back from China trips became symbolic of the espionage. Media coverage seized on these specific details. The idea of a Central Intelligence Agency officer selling out his country for golf clubs was powerful. It was a damning image. It reduced Ma's complex criminal enterprise to a simple transaction: secrets for golf clubs. The reality, however, was far more nuanced. Ma received hundreds of thousands of dollars over 2 decades. The golf clubs were simply one payment among many, yet the symbol stuck in the public imagination. It appeared in every news story, every press release, and every court document. The golf clubs represented the banality of betrayal. It was not based on grand ideology or political conviction. It was simply greed and a desire for money and gifts. Ma threw away his honor and his freedom for consumer goods and cash. Alexander Ma remains in federal custody today. He is serving his 120-month sentence. He is housed at a federal correctional institution. His exact location is not publicly disclosed for security reasons. Ma will be 81 years old when released in 2034. This is, of course, if he survives that long. Life expectancy in federal prison is not favorable for a man who entered custody at age 71. Ma spends his days in the monotonous routine of prison life. This includes wake-up, breakfast, and recreation time in a concrete yard. He has lunch, followed by more recreation or work assignments, then dinner and lockdown. This routine repeats day after day, month after month, and year after year. He no longer has contact with Chinese intelligence officers. There are no more trips to Shanghai, no more cash payments, and no more golf clubs. He only faces the reality of his choices. Periodically, intelligence officers visit him. They conduct the debriefings required by his plea agreement. They ask questions about his espionage activities and about his handlers. They also inquire about the information he stole. Ma answers all the questions. He has no choice in the matter. The plea agreement mandates cooperation for life. If he refuses or lies, he loses the benefit of the agreement. He could face additional charges or have his sentence extended. Therefore, he talks and tells them what they want to know. He submits to the polygraph examinations. He watches the examiner's reactions. The machine records his physiological responses to questions about betrayal and espionage. His brother, referred to as Confidential Cooperator 1, died before the case concluded. Alzheimer's disease destroyed his mind. He never faced trial. He never spent a day in prison for his role in the Hong Kong hotel meetings. His brother never answered for helping identify Central Intelligence Agency human sources to Chinese intelligence. Disease granted him an escape that Ma will never receive. Ma's wife continues to live in Honolulu. She was never charged with any crimes. This was despite her trip to Shanghai to deliver a laptop computer to Chinese intelligence. Prosecutors apparently determined she was merely following her husband's instructions. They believe she did not understand the full nature of what she was doing. Alternatively, prosecutors may have offered her immunity in exchange for cooperation. The specific details of that situation remain sealed. The lessons from the Alexander Ma case continue to shape American counterintelligence efforts. The Central Intelligence Agency and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have enhanced their monitoring of former officers. This includes especially those who travel frequently to China or other countries of counterintelligence concern. The screening process for contractor positions has been strengthened. Background investigations now include more thorough examination of foreign contacts and unexplained wealth. Customs and Border Protection pays closer attention to government employees and contractors returning from certain countries with large amounts of cash or expensive gifts. The interagency coordination between the Central Intelligence Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Customs and Border Protection has improved. Information sharing protocols ensure that suspicious activity identified by one agency reaches the others quickly. The Ma case demonstrated that this coordination works. Customs and Border Protection documented Ma's cash and golf clubs. That information reached the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was already monitoring Ma. The Customs and Border Protection reports provided additional evidence. The mosaic came together piece by piece. However, challenges remain. Chinese intelligence services continue to target American intelligence officers. The recruitment pitches have become more sophisticated. The payment methods have also become more difficult to trace. These methods include cryptocurrency and international shell companies. They also involve complex financial transactions designed to obscure the source of funds. The espionage game adapts. Both sides learn. Both sides adjust. The Ma case is now used as a training example. New intelligence officers learn about it during their initial security briefings. It serves as a cautionary tale of a man who betrayed his oath for money. He spent his final years in a prison cell. This was because he wanted golf clubs and cash more than he valued honor and country. The case reminds every cleared employee that they are being watched. Suspicious behavior will be noticed. Betrayal also has consequences. For viewers who found this story compelling, there are important lessons about trust and betrayal in government service. The intelligence community depends on individuals keeping the oaths they swear. They must protect secrets entrusted to them. They must put national security above personal gain. When someone like Alexander Ma violates that trust, the damage extends beyond the specific secrets revealed. It undermines confidence in the entire system. Furthermore, it forces costly security improvements. It also makes the recruitment and handling of foreign sources more dangerous. This is because those sources wonder if their identities will be protected. The Ma case is not an isolated incident. Instead, it is part of a long history of espionage that continues today. Understanding how these cases develop helps us appreciate the constant vigilance required to protect national security. If you found this documentary informative, please like this video. Also, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into espionage cases and intelligence history. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the Ma case. Consider what surprised you most. Think about what questions you still have. Your engagement helps this content reach more people interested in understanding the hidden world of intelligence and counterintelligence. Thank you for watching this investigation into the betrayal of Alexander Yuk Ching Ma. He was the former Central Intelligence Agency officer who worked as a Federal Bureau of Investigation translator. He was the man who returned from China trips with golf clubs and thousands in cash. He was the spy who sold his country's secrets and paid for it with his freedom.